On the cross, you see Jesus built the bridge between humanity and God. And if you look to my drawing, I am not the greatest artist in the world, but you don't need to be a great artist to demonstrate this fact. If we are on one side of the cliff, this is a cliff. Just in case you didn't know, this is cliff. Cliff number 2.
Got it.
And the goal is to get over here. The idea is that Jesus builds the bridge through the cross. See, I told you I wasn't the greatest artist. So that the person can go from sin to wholeness. From sin to wholeness. Through the cross, the gap is bridged.
Yes, yes.
Through the cross, you can get to the other side. Now, if you don't remember anything else, you can remember the tacky drawing that See, God desired to build a stopgap between sin and to wholeness. And that place is the cross. That takes place on the cross. Jesus went to. There's more. God will also be glorified through me, Jesus says. And I thought, that's really strange. How can this happen? How could God be glorified through this? Well, again, I think the answer is found on the cross. On the cross, Jesus reveals what God is like.
Yes, yes.
See, on the cross, we see love, compassion, mercy.
That's right.
We see that of God. We see the grace and the justice of God through the cross. We see the righteousness and the fulfillment and the holiness and the power of God through the cross. It is all displayed there. And so, what I believe that God is calling us to do is to act like what we see. We're called to act justly. We're called to act with holiness. We're called to act with righteousness. We're called to act in the power of God, not in the power of something else. And we must show the world this incredible love that God has given to us. That's mercy, this grace. And that, my friend, takes commitment, yes? Yes. And that's when God will be glorified through us. When we're committed to something and it actually happens because Virgie stood up and said, send me, God's going to work through her. That's right. And she's committed to that. Or anyone else. If God has called us to do something and we're committed to that call, God will get the glory.
Yes, Lord.
So, how are we doing in our commitment to glorify God? How are you doing in your commitment to glorify God? Are you whining and crying over every turn? Or are you giving God the glory? Are we busy trying to glorify ourselves or get all the credit? Oh, look at me, man, I did this, and I signed up for that, and I signed up for that. But maybe signing up, then I didn't show up. But I signed up, by golly. This is the first level of commitment. This commitment to glorify God. Because we don't care if we get the credit. Glorifying God. Number 2. Do we have an unfailing love for one another? Now, you could spend weeks and long times talking about this new commandment that Christ has given us to love one another. I'm just going to touch on it here because during the summer months we're going to do a series on love. And so the question is, do we have an unfailing love for one another? This is the second mark of commitment. It's found in verse 34, and Jesus says, "A new commandment I give to you, to love one another. As I have loved you, so too you must love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Now, God's word says that the world will know who we are by that love. It doesn't say the world will know who you are by amount of scriptures that you know. Or it doesn't say the world will know how much by all that you do or all that you don't. It talks about love. Are you demonstrating love? Are you demonstrating for love even for folks that might rub you the wrong way? That's the most important thing. It's not about loving those who love you. What good is it? Jesus says. We're called to love one another even in our imperfectness. Even in loving one another the wrong way. Maybe the person that rubs you the wrong way has traits of you. And that's why they rub you the wrong way. Ever think of that? Yeah. That's hard. Anybody who tells you that loving is easy does not know. Love is easy, but it is also difficult. We're called to love one another. Christ wants followers to be known by our love and how they minister to one another. Are we ministering out of love to one another? Love is more than just words. Write that down. Love is more than just words. Because anybody can say, love meaning, but do you really? Love is more than just words. So let me ask you, how are you doing with loving one another? How are you doing?